We are dead, my children! Dead and gone. Have you ever heard of the Franklin expedition, my children? An attempt to find the Northwest Passage? I'll tell you of it. Of its second-in-command, Francis Crozier, and how he became an undead supervillain. The Lost Franklin expedition had 2 ships in it, the Erebus and the Terror. And with that second ship's name, you know we're in for a good story. And Captain John Franklin led the ships in an attempt to find the passage, until their ships became trapped in the pack ice of the Arctic North. We know very little of the details of what happened, my children, except to say that they were trapped there for 3 years, subjected to scurvy, lead poisoning, and other diseases of the time, and that with dwindling supplies, they attempted to march 800 miles down King William's Island in the vain hope of rescue, resorting to cannibalism and eventual death on this march. Hell, we only found the wreck of the Terror in 2016 and still don't know much of what happened. What we do know is that it probably didn't result in a sorcerer zombie. Although I wish it did. In the Marvel universe, Captain Crozier, now head of the expedition after Captain Franklin was lost 6 months into the expedition, literally lost. They claim he left seeking aid and never returned, which was not acceptable naval captain behavior and not something he'd be inclined to do since he had past experience having to make an overland trek, wherein he infamously had to eat his boot leather to survive. But the point is, the death march across the ice. The crew die, their bodies left to freeze where they fell, and this version of Crozier decides that he is going to abandon his men to try to survive in a roundabout way, taking an elixir he concocted that will slow his body's functions in the cold until he is warmed by the spring sun, otherwise appearing dead. He is a doctor and a man of science after all. Francis Crozier was a member of the Royal Astronomical Society, not a doctor, and certainly not an alchemist. But if only. But here's where we get the true horror, my children. For his men, thinking their beloved captain is dead, elect to bury him instead. And he is still alive and mostly conscious as he's put in the ice for 140 years for a thaw that will never come. And then it's time for superheroes. Ugh, worst part of the whole comic now. Couldn't we just have the whole thing be his terror at being buried alive? Snowbird, a member of the team, is a demi-goddess and will soon be delivering a baby. Another member of the group, Shaman, senses that this part of the Arctic where she must deliver her baby through his daughter, Talisman, who has evidently lost her humanity, says that the wind spirits she communes with have informed her that the birthing will fail. Unfortunately, the spot they've chosen just happens to be right over Crozier's living grave. After so long, immortality has made him cold, full of hatred and jealousy for the living who got to live while he was trapped in the ice. As the child begins to be born, its life force emanates out as an energy that evil spirits wish to claim. When the heroine Aurora attempts to punch one of the spirits, her arm passing right through, it's covered in maggots. Rust infects their robotic companion when flies swarm out to attack their leader, Vindicator. All forces of death and decay. And thanks to Talisman's choice of location, the spirit of Francis Crozier, a real person from history, I remind you, infects the child and transforms them into the demented, zombie-like being calling himself Pestilence. He uses his power to feeble Shaman, which is all Talisman wanted, really, to humble her father, and then is more than happy to undo the damage. But there's a problem. While Talisman is the binder of spirits, Crozier is not really a spirit. His body still lives. He is not a mere spirit that can be bound, and within the body of the child is now a demigod. He tears the talisman from her head, the one that robbed her of humanity, which now makes her whole again. But as Shaman realizes, they need the power of the talisman to call forth the spirits of the land to stop Pestilence. Vindicator frees herself from the flies and takes on Pestilence. While they manage to force him back and recover, Alpha Flight contemplates what to do. The being that was once a ship captain apparently taking to his otherworldly powers of death as he summons up spirits of his own to command. With no other choice, Shaman dons the tiara of the talisman to take control of the spirits Pestilence summoned and turn them on him. With no other choice, Pestilence flees to fight another day, taking Snowbird's child with him. And whatever comes from that is a tale for another time. In the meantime, meantime, though, let us appreciate that the cape and costume crowd once realized that if you're going to have historical figures in your story, you should just give them undead superpowers.